the launch of a new Ferrari. It's supposed to be a happy occasion. What happened? So of course I'm talking about the launch of the new Ferrari Luce, which of course means light in Italian. Light meaning photons, not weight. And might as well get out of the way that I feel about the car so far. So after having looked at it and having seen it from every angle, it's horrible. It's terrible. It's sterile, it's cynical, it's sloppy, it's soulless. It is an absolute pile, a 4,000-pound pile of embarrassment. So now that that's out of the way, and you all agree with me, so now that that's out of the way, I can actually talk about what do you make of the car. So to do that, I'm going to just don my Ferrari sunglasses. And the reason why I'm donning my Ferrari sunglasses, which are actually made by Ray-Ban, is to illustrate the point of what Ferrari is. And we all know that they've been, for years, lending their name to all sorts of things. Beach towels and sneakers and coffee mugs. That's nothing new. But what do we make of this car? Because the Luce is an actual car with 4 wheels. So I have a bit of a nuanced view of this. So my nuanced view of the Luce is that as motor testers, we have to stop reviewing EVs as though they're motor cars. The new Luce may be a Ferrari and it may be a vehicle, but it's not a motor car. If you own a Luce, you do not own a motor vehicle from Ferrari. And I think that the same should be said for other EVs as well. An EV is not the same as a motor vehicle. Okay, so I'm back in the garage because I find it extremely difficult to maintain a dialogue when I'm driving the 355. I love it, but it is absolutely deafening, and I can't even hear myself think. And so I find I'm shouting and I'm screaming, and so I'm going to try and splice in some of the comments that I made in the car with some of the comments that I'm going to make with the car in the background. And things are reasonably quiet in my garage today. So, what are we to make of the Ferrari Luce? Well, my first thought was thinking about the Aston Martin Signet, which was based on a Toyota IQ, and it was a car that was expected to sell about 4,000 units per year, and they sold about 700 according to my total in the world, according to my my research that I did. Was it cynical? Yes. Was it something of a middle finger to the regulators? Yes. Did it work to get around the regulations? It absolutely did. But I don't think that the new Luce is an exact analogy for the Signet, because it's not just a rebadge with a little bit more foam and a bit more leather. This is actually a new car, and they're not just putting their name on it, they're actually putting their reputation on it. So when Ferrari puts their name on a pair of sunglasses, like my Ray-Ban sunglasses, they can choose a company like Ray-Ban that's been making sunglasses and eyeglasses for over 100 years now, I believe. And there's really no downside for them, except if it doesn't sell. That's why I bought mine for $50, but I digress. The Luce is supposed to be a new car and a new actual Ferrari. At least that's what at least that's how they're sort of marketing it. But Ferrari at this time is kind of speaking out of both sides of their mouths. They have specifically said, through my research, I found out that they are specifically saying that you will not have to buy a Luce to put your name on a list of other more, shall we say, desirable Ferraris. So, yes, they are marketing it as a Ferrari, but they're also at the same time, they're not going to play the same games that they did with, let's say, a California or some of the lower end models that they have in the past. So that's one thing, that as testers of cars and as people who drive cars and like cars, I think we have to look at EVs completely differently. I think going forward, I think we have to look at an EV just like we would an RV. Yes, it has wheels. Yes, it transports people, but it's a different thing. It is not a Ferrari motor car. You have, if you buy a Luce and that's all you own, you don't own a Ferrari motor car. You're like the guy who bought the sunglasses and doesn't own the car, doesn't own one of the cars, or somebody who bought the laptop or the sneakers. The only difference is this is $600,000, the Luce is, which is another way that it massively diverges from the Signet. The Signet was about $50,000 or so. And this, I could see somebody, every once in a while one will show up in the classifieds, and for some weird reason I'll think, oh, wouldn't that be kind of fun? No, it would not be fun to have a Signet. It's an IQ. It's a terrible vehicle. But I digress. It's probably a darn sight better than the Luce is, although I haven't driven it. What you have to do is just look at these cars in a completely different way. And so that's kind of my nuanced take on the Luce. So now the question is, a lot of people said, oh, this is the end of an era, end of an era. Is this really the end of an era? In my opinion, no, it's not the end of an era, because it's just more of the same. It's no different than the laptop. It's no different than the sneakers. It's no different than the sunglasses. However, it is different in besides the price, it is different in one way, and that is a lot of people are going to look at it as a Ferrari motor car. Those people will be wrong, but the people who do that can be forgiven for doing so. And also, it will damage the brand. There's no way that this new Ferrari, in all of its lack of glory, is not going to damage the brand. It absolutely will. But there is actually some light at the end of the tunnel, and that is if you look at the Signet, to use it again as an example, did Aston Martin somehow become known as a company that has 1.3 liter four-cylinder engines on cars that have tiny, short little wheelbases that are shorter than my arm span? No, they did not become known for that. The car came and went, and I have another analogy for the Luce to kind of predict where I think, for what it's worth, it will be in the future. So those of you who also follow the watch world know about the 1970s and the so-called quartz crisis. They called it the quartz crisis because quartz watches were replacing mechanical watches because they were cheaper. They worked on a battery, sound familiar? And they were mass produced, and they actually were, and still are, slightly more accurate when it comes to keeping time, which is ultimately the whole thing, right? So during that time, Rolex made a watch called the Oyster Quartz. If you know anything about watches, you know about the brand and certainly about that particular watch. They only made it for a very brief time during a very brief window in time. And now, if you're a collector of watches, actually, the Oyster Quartz is a really important part of some people's collection because it was kind of just a snapshot in time. So I think that there's a very good chance that this car, this Ferrari Luce, will be a snapshot in time. I don't think that, I think that the days of people counting carbon and stuff like that, which just greens the environment anyway, I think those days are numbered. And I think that at some point, and this is a little bit of hope, that this will just be a snapshot, and it will be a part of some people's car collections, although it's not a motor car. It is a Ferrari EV. It'll be a small, ambiguous, uninteresting part of a very large collection of Ferraris in the future. But I have a challenge for people who are in the comments. So how many? I mentioned before that the Signet sold about 700 units. They were supposed to sell about 4,000 a year. Yeah, good luck with that. How many units do you think that Ferrari will sell of the Luce? Your guess is as good as mine, but I don't think it's going to be as much as they're hoping for. Ferrari did not actually announce a number that they're expecting, so it should be very interesting. $600,000. I don't think they're even going to make it up to 700, but that's just my opinion. I guess we'll find out. So put it down in the comments if you have a number in mind, and don't say zero, because it's not going to be zero. There's always going to be some idiot out there who buys it. Anyway, I'll see you in the next video.